Some moments happen between heartbeats, between a baby's cry and a stranger's touch, between the life you planned and the one that chooses you in the aisle of a private aircraft at 30,000 feet. He was the kind of man entire cities feared in silence, a king without a crown, a sentence without a verdict. She was the kind of woman entire rooms overlooked, quietly magnificent, bone-tired and still standing. Neither of them was looking. Neither of them was ready. And yet fate has never once cared about readiness. It only cares about collision. This is a story about power meeting softness. About obsession disguised as protection. About a baby's cry that changed two lives forever. If this story moves you, please like, share and subscribe. The baby had been crying for 47 minutes. Anna Ricciola knew because she'd been counting. It was a habit she'd developed when her own daughter, Mia, was 6 weeks old and sleep had become a rumor she told herself about sometimes. You counted. You counted contractions, counted feeds, counted the seconds between one cry and the next, because counting meant you still had some small dominion over time, even when everything else was spinning away from you. She shifted in her seat, economy class, row 22, middle seat because it had been the only affordable option on the overnight flight from Rome to New York, and looked toward the front of the aircraft. Not the economy section. The curtain that separated her world from the other one. The crying was coming from beyond that curtain. She could hear the murmuring of other passengers. Low, irritated, the sound of people who had paid good money to not be bothered by something so human, so uncontrollable, so raw as a crying infant. Mia, 2 years old and exhausted from a day of airports, was finally asleep against Anna's shoulder, her small fist curled in Anna's hair. Anna hadn't moved in an hour for fear of waking her. The flight attendant, young, polished, visibly distressed, hurried past the curtain and back again. A second attendant followed. Then a third. Their faces said what their training would not permit them to say aloud. Anna looked down at Mia. Felt the specific bone-deep exhaustion of a woman who had been doing everything alone for 2 years. Felt, too, the thing she always felt when she heard a baby cry in public. The involuntary tightening in her chest. The way her body remembered what her mind tried to move past. She knew that cry. Not the hunger cry. Not the pain cry. This was the displacement cry. The I don't know where I'm cry. The everything is wrong and nothing smells right cry. She'd spent 400 nights answering that exact cry. She reached up and pressed the call button. The flight attendant appeared in seconds, relief washing briefly across her face before professionalism reasserted itself. Can I help you? The baby up front, Anna said quietly, conscious of Mia sleeping. How old? The attendant blinked. I'm sorry. The baby. How old is she? Or he? Pause. Protocol battling with desperation. 6 months, ma'am. A little girl. Anna nodded slowly. And the father, is he trying to soothe her? Another pause. Longer this time. He's trying everything, ma'am. They've been through the whole bag. Formula, pacifier, rocking, walking. Nothing is working. Anna was already making the calculation. Mia against her shoulder. Curtain. The cry that hadn't stopped. I'd like to help, she said. If he'll allow it. The flight attendant looked at her. Really looked at her the way people looked at Anna when she said something they hadn't expected. Taking inventory. Economy class passenger. Young. Dark circles under her eyes, hair in a messy braid. Wearing a shirt that might have been white 2 days ago. A sleeping toddler against her chest. I can ask, the attendant said carefully. But I should warn you, the gentleman is particular. Anna almost smiled. Aren't they always? She didn't know what she was walking into. Later she would think about that. The absolute absence of knowledge as she shifted Mia carefully to her left arm, stood in the narrow aisle, and followed the flight attendant toward the curtain dividing economy from first class. She didn't know that the man she was about to meet had ordered 3 deaths in the last calendar year. She didn't know that his name caused silences in rooms when spoken aloud. She didn't know that he had a reputation for destroying anyone who came too close without invitation. She knew that a baby was crying. That was enough. The curtain parted. First class on a commercial aircraft was, Anna thought, another country entirely. Wide seats. Real light. The specific hush of money insulating itself from sound. 3 attendants stood near the front partition, their posture a careful performance of calm they absolutely did not feel. And there, in the single largest seat Anna had ever seen on an airplane, sat Don Aurelio Basonei. She registered him in pieces, the way you register something overwhelming. Piece by piece because the whole of it is too much at once. He was large. Not in a crude or brutish way. In the way of men who have never needed to make themselves larger because they already fill a room without effort. Dark suit, jacket discarded, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled to his forearms. A jaw that could have been sculpted by someone making a point about masculine severity. Eyes so dark they held no reflection. And across his right forearm, the one now cradling a small, screaming infant with a helplessness so unguarded it nearly stopped Anna in her tracks, a tattoo. Italian script, dark ink against olive skin, curling from wrist to elbow. La Famiglia al Sang. Family is blood. The letters moved when he shifted the baby, living and breathing with his effort. He looked up when the attendant said, "Sir, this passenger offered to." No. The word landed like a stone dropped from height. The flight attendant flinched. Anna did not. "She has experience with infants, sir," she thought perhaps. "I said no." His English was perfect, lightly accented and absolutely final. Anna looked at him. He looked at her. A brief, dismissive assessment that catalogued her and found her irrelevant in approximately 2 seconds. Then his daughter cried again. A specific spike of desperation, the sound a child makes when she's been crying so long she's no longer certain anyone is coming. The sound of small surrender. Something shifted in Aurelio Basonei's face. Just barely. Just for a moment. A fracture in the stone. Anna stepped forward. "I'm not asking for your permission," she said quietly. "I'm asking if your daughter needs help." The silence that followed was the loudest thing Anna had ever heard. He should have called the attendant back. He should have had her removed. He had, in his life, removed people from situations with considerably less cause. He was a man who did not tolerate unsolicited approach, who had a staff of 23 paid specifically to prevent exactly this kind of intrusion. Who had not, in 11 years at the head of one of Italy's most feared criminal organizations, permitted a stranger to tell him what they were and were not asking permission for. And yet, his daughter was still crying. Sofia, 6 months, 3 weeks and 2 days old, the only uncomplicated love Aurelio Basonei had ever known, was crying with the particular desperation that had been dismantling him, piece by controlled piece for the past 50 minutes. He had tried everything his nanny had written on the laminated card she'd pressed into his hand at the gate. Everything. The woman from economy class was looking at him without fear. That, more than anything, was what stopped him. People did not look at Aurelio Basonei without fear. It was as reliable as gravity. He had long since stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing the weight of the air. But this woman, dark eyes steady, a sleeping toddler against her chest, hair escaping from a braid that had given up some time ago, was looking at him like he was simply a man in an airplane with a crying baby. Like his specific flavor of terrifying was not her problem right now. "Fine," he said. The word cost him something. He wasn't sure what. Anna crossed the remaining distance and crouched beside his seat. Not taking Sofia. Not yet. She looked at the baby first. Really looked. Taking in the flushed cheeks, the rigid shoulders, the way Sofia's small hands were fisted with the effort of her distress. "She's overstimulated," Anna said softly. Not to Aurelio. Almost to herself. And she can't find anything familiar. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan. She'd transferred her essentials when she stood up, an automatic habit, and pulled out a small muslin cloth. She held it briefly to her own neck. Just for a moment. Gathering warmth and scent. Then she held it toward Sofia. The baby's crying hitched. A small instinctive pause. Infants were scent creatures first before they were anything else. Before sight or language or trust, they navigated by smell. "Hey, Anna asked. And this time she was asking him. Looking up from her crouch to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't immediately categorize. He nodded. Just barely. Anna lifted Sofia carefully from his arms. She felt the man tense. She could feel it like a change in atmospheric pressure, the entire muscled mass of him coiling to intervene. But she moved slowly, surely, settling Sofia against her chest alongside Mia, the 2 children bracketed against her. She began to walk. The cabin had gone still. Not the polite, performed stillness of people pretending not to watch. The actual stillness of 20-something passengers collectively holding their breath. A woman in a cream blazer 2 rows back had her hand pressed to her mouth. A businessman had taken out his earbuds without noticing. Anna walked the narrow width of the first-class section, Sophia against her right shoulder, Mia still somehow asleep on her left, and she hummed. Low and structureless. Not a song exactly, more like the oral equivalent of a heartbeat. She pressed the warm muslin cloth gently against Sophia's cheek. Sophia's crying diminished. Hiccuped. Diminished again. Anna kept walking. Kept humming. She didn't look at Aurelio. He watched her with an expression that no one in his organization had ever seen on his face. The tattoo on his forearm, La Famiglia Ale sang, caught the cabin light as his hands dropped to his knees, suddenly purposeless, suddenly unneeded. Sophia made one more sound. A smaller one. A question rather than a declaration. Then she went quiet. The woman in the cream blazer exhaled audibly. Someone started to clap, thought better of it, stopped. The businessman put his earbuds back in with exaggerated casualness. Anna continued walking for another full circuit, making certain. Then she turned back toward Aurelio's seat. He was standing now. He hadn't even realized he'd stood. The tattoo on his wrist shifted as he reached out, then stopped himself. His jaw was tight. His dark eyes were tracking every step she took with his daughter. Anna reached him and held Sophia out. She needs to sleep, she said quietly. Reclined seat is fine, on her back, not her front. Keep the cloth near her face. Don't change anything for at least an hour. He took Sophia with hands that were, she noticed, extraordinarily careful for hands that size. The tattoo flexed. You have a child, he said. It wasn't a question. 2-year-old daughter. Mia. He looked at Mia sleeping against Anna's left shoulder. Something moved through his face that she didn't have a name for yet. Your husband, he started. Is not in the picture, Anna said simply. No apology in it. Just fact. A beat. He absorbed this. Sit, he said. Anna blinked. I'm sorry. Sit. He gestured to the empty seat across the aisle. First class, wide leather, not a thing Anna Ricciola had ever sat in. You'll disturb her if you walk back through the curtain. It was not an invitation. It was barely even politely phrased. It was a man who was accustomed to telling the world how things would be. Anna looked at the seat. Looked at him. Looked at Sophia, now drowsy, the muslin cloth tucked near her face. All right, she said. She didn't sleep. He should have. Her body was staging a quiet mutiny, knees aching, eyes burning, back declaring independence from the rest of her. But she sat in the first-class seat with Mia warm and boneless across her lap, and she did not sleep. Because Aurelio Basonei was 3 feet away from her and he was watching her, and something about that watchfulness made sleep feel very far away. He wasn't being obvious about it. She doubted he was ever obvious about anything. But she was a woman who had spent 2 years hyper-aware of every shift in ambient threat, and she felt his attention the way you felt a change in weather, not seeing it exactly but knowing it was there. Sophia slept. The muslin cloth was exactly where Anna had said to put it. Around the second hour, when the cabin lights had dimmed and most passengers were attempting sleep, Aurelio Basonei said quietly, Where are you going? Anna considered pretending to be asleep. Decided against it. New York. My mother. She has an apartment in Brooklyn. And after Brooklyn? I don't know yet. She paused. I lost my position in Rome. I was a children's nurse at Bambino Gesù Hospital. The ward reorganized. He said nothing. It was a good position, she added almost to herself. For years. It was a very good position. Children's nurse, he repeated. Something shifted in his voice. Careful attention, like a man filing information away. Early childhood specialist, technically. Infants through age 5. She looked at Sophia sleeping peacefully. I've soothed approximately 900 babies, I think. Give or take. 900. He seemed to be doing something with that number. Placing it somewhere. And now you're flying to New York with no position and a 2-year-old. And approximately $400, Anna added. She wasn't sure why she told him that. Exhaustion lowering her usual guard, probably. So, a fairly classic adventure. He looked at her then, really looked the way he hadn't permitted himself to since she'd first stepped through the curtain. And Anna looked back because she was too tired to do anything else. And because something about this particular dark was easier to face than the ordinary dark of the last 2 years. What's your name? He asked. Anna. Anna Ricciola. Aurelio, he said. He did not offer his last name. She didn't ask for it. She didn't see him again at the airport. Or rather, she saw him briefly as she was navigating the chaos of passport control with Mia on her hip and a bag that had been threatening to split at the seams since Fiumicino. He was moving through the arrivals hall with the particular efficiency of a man whose world rearranges itself to accommodate his direction. 3 men flanked him, quiet, large, watching everything. Sophia was in a carrier against his chest, the carrier somewhat incongruous against his suit, and he was talking quietly to one of his men and he did not look back. Anna told herself this was expected. Told herself she hadn't expected him to look back. She'd been telling herself things like this for 2 years. He was quite practiced. She found her mother's apartment by subway, which took an hour and 40 minutes because the F train was suspended and they had to take 3 buses. And by the time she arrived at her mother's door on a street in Sunset Park that smelled of fried plantains and diesel, Mia was crying and Anna was approximately 15 minutes from crying herself. Her mother, Rosaria, opened the door in her housecoat and took one look at her daughter's face and pulled her inside without a word. "Eat," Rosaria said. "Then sleep. Then we talk." Anna ate. Then slept for 14 hours. She did not dream about Aurelio Basonei. She told herself she didn't. 2 weeks passed. Anna registered with a nursing agency, attended 2 interviews that led nowhere, and spent her evenings helping her mother with the small alterations business Rosaria ran from the kitchen table. It was steady work. It was not enough work. Anna was doing the math in her head constantly. The running calculation of a woman who knew exactly how much a 2-year-old needs and exactly how many dollars she currently had to meet those needs. She was not thinking about first class. She was not thinking about dark eyes and Italian tattoos and the specific texture of a man's attention in the dimmed quiet of an overnight flight. She was very deliberately not thinking about those things. On the 15th day she got a call from the nursing agency. "We have a placement," the coordinator said. "Private. Infant specialist needed for a family in Manhattan. Upper West Side, live-in accommodation included, salary is." A pause and then a number that made Anna sit down on her mother's kitchen chair. "Per month." Anna stared at the table. "That's per month. Plus benefits. The family is Italian. Very private. They specifically requested someone with hospital training and experience with difficult infant temperaments." Another pause. It was an unusual request. They mentioned Bambino Gesù Hospital. Anna felt something cold move through her. "Did they give a family name?" she asked carefully. "Basonei," the coordinator said. "A Don Aurelio Basonei." He should have said no. She knew she should have said no. She sat at her mother's kitchen table with the phone pressed to her palm and she ran through every reasonable argument. She didn't know this man, she knew nothing about this family, the salary was implausible, anything implausible had strings attached. She'd spent 2 years learning exactly what strings attached to seemingly good things could do to a person's life. She also ran the other calculation. The $1,400 monthly shortfall between what her mother's household earned and what it needed. The daycare she couldn't afford for Mia. The nursing license she needed to renew. The coat Mia had outgrown. He said yes. The apartment building on Riverside Drive was not what she'd expected. She had expected something ostentatious. The performed excess of wealth advertising itself. Instead the building was old money turned quiet. Pre-war brick, a uniformed doorman who nodded as if he'd been expecting her, an elevator with actual wood paneling that rose silently to the 14th floor. A woman met her at the door. 50s, precise, Italian, with the kind of face that had decided something about Anna before Anna had opened her mouth. "Gabriella," the woman said. "Household manager. Come." The apartment was, Anna looked around, doing her best not to visibly react, large. High ceilings. Original moldings. The kind of careful luxury that didn't need to prove anything. On the walls, art that Anna suspected was real. On the floors, rugs that were definitely real. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Hudson River catching afternoon light like it was trying. Mia, holding Anna's hand, looked up with enormous eyes and said, "Mama, big house." "Yes, tesoro," Anna murmured. "The family is not here this evening," Gabriella said, leading them through rooms that kept revealing themselves one after another. "You'll settle in, review the schedules, meet Sophia tomorrow morning. Don Basonei, A slight emphasis on the title that Anna filed carefully. Returns at 7. I'll need to know the full scope of the position, Anna said. Gabriella turned to look at her. A measuring look. Primary infant care for Sophia. 6 months. You're aware she has a difficult temperament. I'm aware she's overstimulated by unfamiliar environments and finds displacement distressing, Anna said. Which is fairly standard for her age and neurologically quite typical. Something shifted in Gabriella's expression. Not quite warmth. Something adjacent to it. Your quarters are through here, Gabriella said. For you and your daughter. The room was large with 2 beds and a window facing the river. Mia climbed immediately onto the nearest bed and bounced twice. Anna stood in the doorway and made herself breathe. She met Sophia at 6:30 the next morning. Sophia was awake and quiet in her crib, looking at the mobile above her with the intense concentration of an infant finding the world both fascinating and slightly suspicious. She had dark eyes and an abundance of dark hair and a small, solemn face that reminded Anna powerfully of her father. Anna spoke to her softly. Not commands, not reassurances, just words, a stream of them, Italian and English mixed together, low and unhurried, giving Sophia time to calibrate this new voice, this new presence, this new member of the small ecosystem that was her world. Sophia listened. Her small hands opened and closed. You're going to be fine, Anna told her quietly. You just need things to feel predictable. We'll work on that. She does that when she's considering something. Anna turned. Aurelio Basonei stood in the doorway of the nursery. He was wearing a dark suit, no tie yet, the collar open at the throat. The tattoo on his forearm was partially visible beneath a rolled cuff, La Famiglia Il Sang, and across his collarbone, just visible where the collar gaped, was another mark she hadn't seen on the plane. A detailed crest in black ink, some kind of bird with spread wings. Bold. Deliberate. A thing that had been decided long before the man wearing it had any say in the matter. He was looking at her with an expression she was beginning to recognize. Assessment. Cataloging. The careful, absolute attention of a man who trusted almost nothing and watched everything. Good morning, she said. You came, he said. I said I would consider it. I considered it. You're here. That means you considered it in my favor. Something in his voice, not arrogance exactly, but the specific gravity of a man who expected the world to arrange itself around him and was noting with mild interest that it had done so again. It means I needed the position, Anna said clearly, and that my references were strong enough that you offered it. Let's not overcomplicate the transaction. He looked at her for a long moment. Then very nearly the corner of his mouth moved. Fine, he said. The same word he'd used on the plane. Costing him the same thing, whatever that thing was. He crossed to the crib and looked down at Sophia. His entire bearing changed. Some barometric shift in the atmosphere around him, the command presence dropping by a measurable degree, something softer and more unguarded emerging in its place. She slept the whole night, he said. Not really to Anna. More like a man confirming something to himself. She will mostly if the environment is consistent, Anna said. Temperature, sound level, scent. She's very responsive to scent. That's useful. It means she bonds quickly when she trusts. He looked up. Like people. A little bit. Yes. She learned his world in pieces. Not because anyone explained it to her. Gabriella was efficient but not explanatory, and Aurelio Basonei was the least explanatory man Anna had ever met. She learned it the way you learn any ecosystem you've been dropped into. By watching, by listening, by paying attention to the things people worked hard not to say. There were men downstairs at all hours. Different men rotating but always at least 2. They did not speak to Anna directly. They acknowledged her with nods, with a specific quality of watchfulness that told her she was known about, catalogued, permitted. He was not afraid of them. She thought sometimes that they found her slightly baffling. There were visitors. Men in suits. Occasional phone calls that ended when she entered a room. A meeting one evening in the library. A room she was quietly steered away from by Gabriella with no explanation required. And there was Aurelio himself who moved through his own household like a controlled weather system. Present. Contained. Radiating something she felt on her skin. She learned his patterns. He rose early and worked in his study until 8. He ate breakfast alone quickly. He left the apartment at 9, sometimes not returning until midnight or later. But he was always in the nursery by 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening. Always. No matter what else was happening. No matter who was waiting or what meeting was delayed. The twice-daily check on Sophia was absolute. Inviolable. Anna noticed this. She noticed everything. 3 weeks in, a man arrived at the apartment that the other men responded to differently. Not fear. The other men seemed to fear nothing, but a particular quality of alertness. Like soldiers when an officer enters. He was younger than Aurelio. Broader. More physically obvious in his power. He came in through the private entrance and went directly to the library, and through the closed door Anna could hear raised voices. She was in the sitting room with Sophia and Mia. The two children engaged in a carpet-based negotiation over a stuffed rabbit that Mia refused to share and Sophia could not yet properly demand. She registered the argument behind the library door as background. She focused on the rabbit diplomacy. When the library door opened she didn't look up. But she felt it when Aurelio entered the room. Felt the change in air pressure. Felt his gaze find her, crossed to Sophia, soften fractionally, then return to Anna with something complicated in it. The younger man followed him in. He stopped when he saw Anna. His eyes moved over her with the specific, calculating attention of someone who saw women primarily as variables. "Your nurse," he said. Not to her. To Aurelio. "Sophia's nurse," Aurelio said. Very precisely. "She's pretty," the man said. Still not to her. Hadn't expected that. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Anna, without looking up from the rabbit negotiation, said, "Sophia, Tesoro, perhaps you could show our guest how well you can hold the rabbit." Both hands. Sophia, who had been watching the adults with enormous attention, refocused on the rabbit. She grabbed it with both fists and attempted to eat it. The younger man laughed, surprised into it. Aurelio was not laughing. Aurelio was looking at his brother. The resemblance was obvious now, the same jaw, the same eyes, younger and less controlled, with an expression that said very clearly, "We will discuss this later." "Matteo," he said, "you have somewhere to be." That evening, after both children were asleep, Anna was in the kitchen making tea. She heard Aurelio come in from wherever the day had taken him, heard him stop in the doorway. She didn't turn around. "My brother," he said. "He's..." A pause, something that might have been the search for a diplomatic word. "Unfiltered." "He's fine," Anna said. She filled her mug. "Men like that, I've met them. They talk at women rather than to them. It's a habit. Usually not malicious. Not with him. Not usually." She turned then because something in his voice snagged. He was leaning in the kitchen doorway, jacket gone, tie gone, the exhaustion of the day sitting plainly on him in the only place he let it show, around his eyes. The tattoo on his wrist was there in the kitchen light. "La Famiglia AIL sang." "Long day?" she asked. It was a simple question. The kind you asked anyone. The look on his face said that no one had asked him that in a very long time. "Yes," he said. She held up her mug. "An offer." He crossed to the counter and made tea with the methodical efficiency of a man who knew exactly how he took it, and they stood in the large, quiet kitchen of the apartment on Riverside Drive while the city moved below them, and they didn't talk about anything important, and it was the most at ease Anna had seen him. The problem with working in someone's home, the specific problem that nursing schools didn't cover and no amount of professional experience quite prepared you for, was proximity. Not physical proximity exactly. That was manageable. That had rules and distances and could be navigated with professional care. It was the other kind. The kind where you learned how a person moved through their own space. Where you saw them unguarded, at 7 in the morning looking down at their sleeping daughter, something open and defenseless on their face. Where you were present for the cup of coffee at the kitchen counter and the quiet return from long evenings and the way their whole bearing shifted when they held Sophia. Anna was very carefully not having feelings about any of this. She was being professional. She was doing her job exceptionally. She was providing excellent care for Sophia, who was, it was fair to say, thriving. The temperament issues the agency had flagged were resolving steadily under consistency and routine. Sophia had begun to smile. She had discovered her hands. She had very recently started producing the specific sound that preceded laughter. A pressurized sort of delight that made everyone in the room immediately and helplessly happy. Anna was also providing good care for herself, which meant maintaining boundaries, maintaining professionalism, maintaining the careful distance that kept the power imbalance of this situation from swallowing her whole. She was doing very well at this. And then Aurelio Basonei came home early one Tuesday evening to find her sitting on the nursery floor playing a clapping game with Sofia while Mia performed what could charitably be called a dance recital in the corner. And he stopped in the doorway and watched for a full minute before she noticed him, and when she did, when their eyes met over the babies' heads, she felt the careful distance she'd been maintaining do something complicated. He crossed and sat down on the nursery floor. He sat on the floor of his daughter's nursery in his $3,000 suit and joined the clapping game. Sofia beamed at him. An enormous, complete 7-month-old beam that rearranged his entire face. Mia stopped dancing and regarded the intruder with the serious assessment only a 2-year-old could produce. Then she said, "You're big." "Yes," Aurelio agreed gravely. "Mama says you live here." "Mia," Anna said. "I do live here," Aurelio said. Mia considered this. "Okay," she concluded and returned to her recital. Anna did not look at Aurelio again for several minutes. She focused on Sofia. She was very focused on Sofia. That night she heard voices in the hallway. Not raised, controlled, but with an edge that passed through the closed door of her room. 2 men. Aurelio and someone else. The words were Italian and too low to make out, but the texture of the conversation was unmistakable. Negotiation from a position of absolute authority on one side, and something more careful, more placating on the other. She heard a door close. Then quiet. Then, because she was awake and the apartment was large and the hallway light was still on under her door, she got up to check on Sofia. Sofia was asleep. Fine. Anna stood by the crib for a moment, listening to the small even sounds of infant sleep, and then she turned to go back. Aurelio was in the nursery doorway. He was still in the suit. He looked, not shaken exactly. He looked like a man who was accustomed to managing crises and was currently managing one and was very competent at it and was also, underneath all of that, tired in a way that competence couldn't fully mask. He saw her. The surprise crossed his face and was gone before it fully arrived. "She's fine," Anna said softly. "Sleeping." "I know." He looked at Sofia. Then, without quite looking at Anna, "You should sleep." "You should too," she said. He made a sound that might have been amusement. "Yes," he said. Eventually. He didn't move from the doorway. She didn't move from beside the crib. They stood in the dark of the nursery with Sofia sleeping between them and the city outside the window and something large and unnamed taking up space in the room. "Aurelio," she said because she was very tired and tired people made mistakes and one of them was starting to feel inevitable. He looked at her then. Directly. The dark eyes and the controlled face and the tattoo on his wrist visible even in the low nursery light. "You should go to sleep," she said. "Pause." "Yes," he said. He went. She stood by Sofia's crib for another long moment. Then she went back to her room and lay down and stared at the ceiling and told herself firmly that this was a job. That she was a professional. That she had a child to think about. That the power gap between them was the size of a continental divide and she had not come this far to throw herself into it. Her heart characteristically was not listening. 6 weeks after Anna arrived, a man named Dario Falcone began appearing in the building's lobby. He worked for one of Aurelio's associates. Some role in the financial side of things that Anna understood only vaguely and asked about even less. He was handsome in a deliberate aware-of-itself way. He had smiled at Anna twice in the elevator. The second time he had introduced himself. "You're with the Basonei household?" he'd asked. "Sofia's nurse," Anna had said. "Sofia." He'd smiled. "The little one. She's better now, I hear. The old regime, the nannies before you, they couldn't manage her. She just needed consistency," Anna had said. "And you can provide that." He'd held the elevator door for her. "Perhaps consistency extends to dinner? I know a place on the west side." "I'm not available for dinner," Anna had said pleasantly. "Another time then." She'd thought no more about it. Aurelio had clearly thought more about it. She noticed it first in small things. A quality of stillness when Dario's name came up in some household context. A particular attention he gave the lobby camera footage, which she knew he reviewed because Gabriella mentioned it once in passing and then clearly wished she hadn't. And then one evening she came into the kitchen to find Aurelio at the counter and Dario Falcone standing across from him, and the texture of the room was something that made Anna stop in the doorway. Aurelio was perfectly still. That specific stillness, she recognized it now. The controlled center of a man whose anger was not a weather event but a deliberate choice he had not yet made. Dario was speaking. Something about a meeting, a restaurant, a time. He saw Anna in the doorway and his expression brightened. Sociable, easy. Anna, he said. I was hoping. Not now, Aurelio said. The two words contained a volume of information. Dario looked at Aurelio. Something passed across his face. Calculation, recalibration. Of course, he said. Pleasantly. Entirely pleasantly. And he left. Anna stood in the kitchen doorway. Aurelio did not look at her. That was unnecessary, she said. Was it? He works for your associate. Being rude to him creates complications. I wasn't rude. He picked up his coffee cup. I was clear. Aurelio. You don't know what he is, he said. Very quietly. She looked at him. And what is he? A long pause. He set the cup down. The tattoo on his forearm caught the light. The script of it, La Famiglia Al sang. A man who sees things he should consider carefully before reaching for, Aurelio said. And he walked out of the kitchen. Anna stood alone in the large, quiet room and felt the continental divide between them shift. Not wider. Something else. Something more complicated than wide. That same night at 11:47, Anna's phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. Italian country code. She answered because she was awake and because unknown Italian numbers in the middle of the night were a specific category of call that her body had learned to take seriously. Is this Anna Ricciola? A woman's voice. Oh. Slightly unsteady. Yes. Who is this? Pause. Then, my name is Livia. I was, another pause, something careful being navigated. I was Aurelio's wife. Sophia's mother. The room went very still. Sophia's mother is, Anna stopped. Gabriella had told her matter-of-factly in the first week. Sophia's mother had died in childbirth. A complication. Tragedy. Aurelio had not spoken of it once. They told him I was dead, the woman said. I wasn't. I'm not. A breath, ragged, frightened. I'm in Milan. I've been in Milan for 7 months. And I need you to listen to me very carefully, because there are men watching your building, and they are not Aurelio's men, and you and those children are in danger. The line went dead. Anna stared at her phone in the dark of her room, her heart hammering, the city glowing orange through the curtains, 2 sleeping children on the other side of the wall, and the whole complicated architecture of the last 6 weeks rearranging itself around this one impossible phone call. She got up. She went to Aurelio's study. She knocked on the door. He opened the study door immediately as if he hadn't been asleep. As if he'd been waiting. One look at her face and he stepped back from the door. Come in, he said. The study was all dark wood and controlled order. Books arranged by language, papers in neat stacks. A desk that told you everything about how this man inhabited his own life. On the corner of the desk, a photograph. Sophia, newborn, asleep in Aurelio's hands. His face in the photo was something Anna had never seen on him before. Stripped of everything, entirely open, entirely undone. She stood in the center of the study and told him about the call. She told him every word. She watched his face as she spoke and she was prepared for many things. Controlled fury, denial, the careful poker face of a man who revealed nothing. She was not prepared for what actually happened, which was this. The color left his face. Quietly. As if it had been requested to leave. He sat down in the chair behind his desk. Not with intention. More as if the sitting down had been decided by his body without consulting the rest of him. Say it again, he said. The name she gave. Livia. He closed his eyes. Aurelio. Anna moved forward. Who is she? Did you? She is dead, he said. The words were flat. The words of a man who had said this before and had required them to be true. They told me there were doctors, there was paperwork, I saw the... He stopped. His jaw worked. The tattoo on his wrist moved as his hand closed on the edge of the desk. There was a funeral. She said they told you she was dead. She said she's in Milan. His eyes opened. Dark and very still and doing something complicated behind them. Who, he said quietly, would have the resources to arrange a false death? Anna thought about this. Thought about the men in the lobby, the rotating quiet guards. The conversation through the library door she'd heard weeks ago. He thought about Matteo, the younger brother, broader, less controlled. She didn't say the name. He didn't need to. Aurelio said it. Quietly. Like something he was deciding to say despite it costing him enormously. Matteo. He didn't leave. He didn't call anyone. He sat in the study with the door closed and he was very still for a very long time, and Anna sat in the chair across from him because she could not in good conscience leave and because some part of her recognized that this man, this vast, controlled, dangerous man, was quietly fracturing in a way that she understood intimately. She knew what it felt like to have the story of your loss rewritten by someone else's decision. She knew the specific quality of that silence. Your brother, she said finally. Why would he? Control, Aurelio said. Flat. Factual. The word of a man who spoke the language of power fluently. Sophia's mother was never, a pause, something carefully chosen, she was never from our world. She was a civilian. A woman I met in Florence when I was trying briefly to be a different version of myself. Something moved through his face. She was pregnant. I would have, he stopped. Matteo didn't approve. He said she was a liability. A vulnerability. That I was compromising the family by, he exhaled. We argued. And then she died. Or so I was told. Anna said nothing. If Matteo arranged it, Aurelio continued very quietly, if he had her removed, placed somewhere, hidden, the control was still there, the scaffolding of it, but she could see the places where it was taking the weight badly. Sophia has been without her mother for 7 months. And Livia has been without her daughter. His eyes came to hers. Yes, he said. She went back to bed eventually because he asked her to, and because there was nothing she could do in the middle of the night that could not be done more effectively at dawn. But she did not sleep. She lay in the dark and listened to the ordinary city sounds and thought about 7 months. About the specific, impossible mathematics of missing your child for 7 months when someone else decided you would. At some point past 3 in the morning she heard him. The apartment was not large enough to be fully silent. You learned its sounds, learned what footsteps belonged to which person. She heard him go to the nursery. Heard the door very quiet. Heard him moving to the crib. She heard him say low and broken in Italian, I didn't know. Sylvia. I didn't know. Anna pressed her face into her pillow and did not cry. She had been not crying for 2 years. He was very good at it. Morning changed the shape of everything. Aurelio was at the kitchen counter when she came out with Mia, and he had the particular quality of a man who had not slept and had decided to be functional anyway, which she recognized because she had spent an extended period of her own life being exactly that. He had made coffee. He had, she noticed, made enough for 2. Mia climbed into her chair and demanded eggs. Anna made eggs. The ordinary machinery of a morning rolled forward. When Mia was absorbed in breakfast and Sophia was beginning to fuss in the nursery, her morning declaration that she was awake and had opinions about this, Anna went to get her, and when she came back to the kitchen Aurelio was watching her carry his daughter with an expression she would carry with her for a long time afterward. She called you, he said. Not me. She may not have your number. Or she may have been afraid to call you directly. Anna settled Sophia against her hip. Or she may have known you'd react immediately and she needed time to. Who has her? He asked. In Milan. Who is keeping her? She didn't say. The call ended. His jaw tightened. He was doing the calculations she could practically see moving behind his eyes. The mapping of his brother's network, the men Matteo controlled, the places in Milan where you kept someone who needed to stay kept. I need to verify, he said. Before a pause. Before he did what Anna suspected he very badly wanted to do immediately. I need to verify. Yes, she agreed. You do. He looked at Sophia. Sophia, with no context for the enormous adult things happening above her head, reached out and grabbed his finger with both hands. He looked down at her small hands around his large one. The tattoo on his wrist. La Famiglia Ail sang. The crest on his collarbone visible above his open collar. And his face was doing the thing it only did around Sophia. The unguarded thing, the thing without armor. I'll keep them safe, Anna said quietly. While you verify. That's what I'm here for. He looked up. Their eyes met over Sophia's dark head. I know, he said. He verified in 4 days. 4 days during which Anna kept the apartment's rhythms intact, kept Sophia and Mia fed and rested and on schedule, kept herself professionally anchored against the subtle current of something pulling her off course. 4 days during which Aurelio moved through the apartment like a pressure system, controlled and purposeful and radiating a focused energy that she felt even through closed doors. He confirmed on a Thursday evening. He came to find her in the nursery, both children awake, Sophia doing tummy time on the mat while Mia narrated it at length, and he stood in the doorway and said, "She's in Milan. A house in Navigli. Matteo's property. Pause. She's been there the whole time." Anna looked up at him. "She's well," he said. "Physically. Well." Something crossed his face. "She doesn't know about Matteo directly. She was told." He stopped. "She was told I had arranged it. That I wanted Sophia without complication." The silence that followed that was very large. "She thinks you," Anna started. "Yes." His voice was controlled. The control was costing something visible. "For 7 months she has believed I arranged her disappearance. That I took our daughter and discarded her." "Oh, Aurelio." She said his name before she meant to. "The way you said the name of someone you'd stopped being careful about." He looked at her. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Get her back." "Simple." "Certain." "Bring her here. Let her see Sophia." Pause. "And then deal with Matteo." "Dealing with Matteo," Anna said carefully. "It will not involve anything you need to concern yourself with. I work in this household. I have a child in this household. I am." She stopped. She was going to say something exact that she wasn't sure she had the standing to say yet. "You are what?" he asked. "Quiet. Watchful." She looked at him across the nursery mat, across the babies, across the continental divide that had been shifting between them for weeks. "I am someone who deserves to know what she's walked into," she said. Came out precisely. Without apology. His face changed. Not away from her, toward her. Some of the control dropped away and she saw something underneath it that was tired and honest and more human than he usually permitted himself to be in her vicinity. "Yes," he said. "You are." He moved into the room, not toward her but to the edge of the mat where he sat down in his expensive suit beside his daughter and he talked. Not everything. She understood there would always be things he would not tell her, things that existed in a part of his life she would never fully enter. But he talked about the organization, about the weight of what he'd inherited, about the specific loneliness of being the person everyone deferred to and no one questioned and no one simply talked to. About Matteo, who had been managing their father's network before Aurelio took control, who had never fully accepted the transition, who had been running a quiet campaign of erosion for years. About Livia, who had been gentle and laughing and entirely unprepared for what Anna could see now was a very specific kind of tragedy. About Sophia, who had changed something in him that he was still learning the shape of. When he finished, the room was quiet. Both babies had fallen asleep on the mat. Sophia curled on her stomach. Mia sprawled with the spectacular abandon of a 2-year-old fully committed to unconsciousness. Anna looked at the sleeping children. "You should have told me," she said. "When you hired me. I deserved to know there was risk." "There wasn't risk. Matteo didn't know." "He knows now," she said. "He watches the building." Livia said the men watching weren't yours. She looked at him. "He knows you're asking questions. He knows something is moving." Aurelia was very still. "You need to move faster," she said. He looked at her with an expression she had never seen on him before. Not deference, not exactly. Something more like recognition. Like a man seeing himself reflected back in a way that was accurate rather than flattering. "Yes," he said. He moved that night. Anna knew because she heard it. The departure, the particular texture of men leaving a space with purpose. She lay awake and thought about Livia in a house in Navigli. About 7 months. About Sophia's face. In the morning Aurelio was gone. He sent a message at noon. "Back tomorrow. Children are to remain inside. 3 additional security on the building. Don't worry." Anna looked at the message. Thought of several responses. Sent, understood. Sophia had a good morning. He sent back, "Thank you." And then, a minute later, something she had not expected. "What would I have done without you on that plane?" She stared at her phone for a long time. She did not respond to the last message. She didn't have words for it yet. He came back the following evening with Livia. Anna had moved the children to the sitting room, had prepared a space in the guest suite, had done all the practical things that needed doing, and when she heard the elevator she took both children out of the main hallway's eye line and waited. She heard the apartment door open. Heard voices. Low, careful, the specific texture of two people navigating something enormous. A woman's voice. Then silence. Then from the sitting room, the unmistakable sound of Aurelio saying, very quietly in Italian, "She's in here." And then a sound she would never forget for as long as she lived. The sound a woman makes when she sees her baby for the first time after 7 months. It was not elegant. It was not controlled. It was entirely human. The absolute collapse of all the armor a person constructs to survive, and then the thing underneath, raw and flooding and real. Anna moved to the kitchen and made tea. She kept Mia occupied with a puzzle, and she gave the sitting room whatever time it needed, and she did not cry. She did not cry. Mia looked up at her. "Mama is sad." "No, tesoro," Anna said. Her voice was fine. "Just thinking." Aurelio found her in the kitchen an hour later. He stood in the doorway. He looked wrung out. Like a man who had been held at maximum tension for days and had only now barely been permitted to lower the hammer. "She's with Sophia," he said. "Good." Anna poured him tea without asking. "And Matteo?" His jaw tightened. "Handled." She decided not to ask what that meant. Some questions she was learning had answers she was better off receiving only through implication. "Livia," he said. She's not part of this life. She never was. She'll stay here with Sophia until," he paused. "Until she decides what she wants." Anna looked at him. "And what do you want?" He met her eyes. "That," he said, "is a more complicated question than it appears." The apartment settled into a new shape over the following weeks. Livia was gentle, still shaken, building herself back piece by piece in the way of someone who'd survived something that had no clean name. She and Aurelio were carefully cordial. Whatever had been between them had been something brief and circumstantial, not the bones of a life. They were both clear on this, Anna gathered, without her needing to be told. What was less clear, and grew daily less clear, was what was building between Aurelio and Anna. It had no clean name either. It was the kitchen at midnight. The nursery at 7 a.m. The way he had started, without ceremony or announcement, to include her in evenings. Just nearby, just in the same room, the children between them like a gentle reason. The way he deferred, sometimes, to her reading of a situation with the specific ease of a man acknowledging competence without finding it threatening. The way she found herself more than once turning to tell him something. About Mia, about Sophia, about some small ordinary thing. Before she caught herself and remembered what he was and who she was and the distance between those two things. It was the day Mia called him by name. Not his title. His name. "Aurelio, look," Mia said, brandishing a drawing of something that might have been a horse or a very ambitious dog. He crouched to her level. This man who commanded rooms and frightened cities, and considered the drawing with complete seriousness. "Very good," he said. "Is that a horse?" "It's you," Mia said. Anna across the room covered her mouth. Aurelio looked at the drawing. Mia. Something on his face, incredulous and then helplessly, thoroughly soft. "I see," he said gravely. "I like it very much." Mia, satisfied, returned to her work. He looked up and found Anna watching him. And she didn't look away in time, and he didn't look away at all, and whatever was building in the space between them accumulated another layer in the silence. That evening he came to find her. She was in the small sitting area off the kitchen. Her space, she'd come to think of it, the corner with the window and the chair and the view of the river. And she was reading, but not reading, staring at a page and thinking about continental divides. He sat down across from her. "I need to tell you something," he said. He put down the book. "You've been here 2 months," he said. "You came because you needed the position. You've been," a pause, something that wasn't quite comfortable with itself. "You've been extraordinary. With Sophia. With Mia. With all of this." He gestured at the space around them, encompassing, she understood, more than the apartment. "Aurelio. I am not accustomed," he said, "to asking for things." She was quiet. "I am, however," he continued carefully, "aware that there are things worth the unfamiliarity." She looked at him. At the dark eyes. At the tattoo on his wrist, La Famiglia Al sang, visible where his sleeve had shifted. At the man she had watched for 2 months and whose world had become, somehow, irrevocably part of her own landscape. "You're still my employer," she said. I am. That's a significant complication. I'm aware. His jaw was set in the way of a man making an argument he's not sure he'll win. I'm willing to complicate it. I have a daughter, she said. I cannot complicate things casually. I know. He met her eyes. I'm not suggesting casualness. The room was very quiet. Ask me what you're actually asking me, she said. Because she needed to hear it. Because he was a man who commanded rooms and she was a woman who had spent 2 years being overlooked, and she needed the words spoken plainly. He leaned forward. Forearms on his knees, hands clasped, the tattoo clearly visible. He looked at her with an expression that was stripped of all the armor she had watched him carry. The command presence, the controlled stillness, the careful distance of a man who had learned to give nothing away. I'm asking, he said, if you would be willing to let this be something. Whatever it becomes. Whatever we decide together it can be. Anna looked at him for a long moment. I'm frightened, she said. As it was true. Because fear in her experience was a useful signal rather than a reason to stop. So am I, he said. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't expected it, and it moved through her like a warm current through cold water. Okay, she said. 3 days after that conversation, the threat made itself explicit. It came through one of Aurelio's men. A message intercepted from a network allied with the Falcone family, Dario's people, who had apparently been monitoring the apartment with more intention than Anna had realized. The message concerned Anna specifically. She was told this by Aurelio directly. He came to her in the morning before the household was fully awake, and he sat at the kitchen table and told her what the message contained. The Falcone network had been aware that Aurelio's attention had shifted, that there was a woman in the household whom he'd moved to protect in ways he did not usually protect staff. They had, the message indicated, been watching Anna. Her routines. Mia's routines. They were considering her as leverage. Anna listened to this. He was very still. You're not in immediate danger, Aurelio said, the careful voice of a man managing information he wanted her to have without panicking her. My security is. I know about your security, she said quietly. That's not what I'm thinking about. What are you thinking about? She looked at him. I'm thinking that I brought Mia into this. His jaw tightened. You didn't know. No. But she's here and she's two and she didn't choose this and, Anna stopped. The maternal fear was a specific frequency she'd learned to manage, not to suppress. She breathed through it. What happens now? Now, he said, I remove the threat. The Falcone network is. I know what it is. His voice had changed. Not to her. But the command presence was back, the specific energy of a man who made decisions that other people enforced. It will be handled. Aurelio. She waited until he looked at her. Be careful. Not for me, well yes for me, but also just, be careful. He looked at her for a moment that lasted longer than it needed to. Yes, he said. She left on a Thursday morning. Not a planned leaving. Not a dramatic one, though it was dramatic enough in the way that quiet things are. She had spent 2 days watching the security around the building tighten, watching Aurelio move through the apartment with the particular controlled fury of a man handling something enormous and handling it privately, watching Mia be entirely unaware of all of this and drawing horses at the kitchen table. She had been telling herself for 2 days that she was managing. That this was manageable. That she had made a choice to let this be something, and that meant accepting the shape of his world along with everything in it. And then Mia had asked why there were so many men outside. And Anna had said, just people who help keep us safe, Tesoro. And Mia had looked at her with the absolute, unclouded intelligence of a 2-year-old who always knew when an adult was telling a simpler version of the truth. And she'd said, safe from what? Anna had packed a bag that night. Not much. What she'd arrived with. She left a note on the kitchen counter. Brief, professional, saying she was taking Mia to her mother's temporarily, that she would of course give appropriate notice and arrangements for Sophia's care, that she was grateful for the position. She did not say anything else. She didn't trust herself to say anything else without saying too much or too little. She was in the lobby, Mia's hand in hers, the bag on her shoulder, when she heard the elevator. He was still in his suit from the night before. He had clearly not slept. The control was all there, it was always all there, but the exhaustion was visible in the way it usually wasn't, and he looked at her bag and at Mia and at Anna's face, and he did not say anything for a moment. You read the note, she said. Yes. Then you know. I know what the note said. He was very still. I'm asking you to tell me what the note didn't say. The lobby was quiet. The doorman, with the very fine discretion of someone paid to have it, had moved away. Anna looked at him. At this man. At everything he was, which was enormous and complicated and genuinely frightening, and also, underneath all of it, the person who sat on nursery floors in $3,000 suits and let a 2-year-old decide he looked like a horse. I'm afraid, she said. Not of you, of this. Of what happens to me if this goes wrong. Of what I'm teaching her about the kind of situation you accept because you have. She stopped. Because you have feelings that you didn't ask for and didn't plan and don't know what to do with. He moved toward her. Not fast. Not commanding. Just toward her, the way she'd watched him move toward Sophia when Sophia was distressed. Steadily. Certainly. He stopped close. Near enough that she could see the detail of the collarbone tattoo, the crest in black ink. Near enough that she could feel the warmth of him. I am not going to let anything happen to Mia, he said. You can't promise that. I can make it profoundly likely. His voice was quiet. I can also, a pause, something being chosen. I can change the shape of my world. I have been considering changing it for some time. Matteo's removal, what I'm doing with the falcons, it is not only about protection. It is also about deciding what kind of life I actually want. She looked at him. I want one that looks like this, he said. That has this in it. Mia. Sophia. The kitchen. The nursery floor. A beat. I recognize this is a significant thing to say to a woman in a lobby. Despite everything, she felt something move through her that was warm and helpless and wholly inconvenient. It is, she agreed. Will you come back upstairs? She looked at Mia, who was looking between them with the serene patience of someone who had no idea what was happening but was reserving judgment. Not yet, Anna said. His face shifted. Not because I don't want to, she said quickly. Because I need to do this properly. I need to take Mia to my mother's and explain things in a way that is fair to her. I need a day to breathe. And I need you to do what you're doing with the Falcone situation and tell me when it's done and what it means. He looked at her for a long moment. And then I'll come back, she said. The things that moved through his face in the next few seconds were too fast and too many for her to fully catalog. What landed was relief. Complicated and guarded and real. One day, he said. One day. He reached out. Very slowly. His hand, the one with the tattoo curling from wrist to elbow, came up and his fingers touched her face. Just barely. Just a moment. The specific tenderness of someone who didn't touch people casually and was choosing to touch her. She held very still. He let his hand drop. Go, he said. One day. She spent the day at her mother's. Rosaria made coffee and did not ask questions, which was the specific genius of mothers who have been paying attention. Mia ran in the small yard and ate 2 of her grandmother's cookies and fell asleep on the sofa with chocolate on her face. Anna sat at the kitchen table and breathed. She thought about what she wanted. Not what was practical, not what was safe. What she wanted, which was a question she had stopped asking herself 2 years ago when everything had narrowed to survival and Mia and the running calculation. She wanted the kitchen at midnight. She wanted the nursery at 7. She wanted a man who sat on floors and listened and was, underneath all the enormous complicated weight of what he was, someone she trusted with the things she hadn't trusted anyone with in a long time. She called him at 4 in the afternoon. He picked up on the first ring. The Falcone matter, she said. Settled, he said. As of this morning. They will not be a concern. You're sure? Anna. A pause that contained a great deal. I am sure. She looked out her mother's kitchen window at the small yard where Mia had been playing. Tell me one true thing, she said. About what you want. Not what you'll provide or protect or arrange. What you want. A silence. Then, you, he said. Simply. The way you are. The way you talk to my daughter. The way you told me I was going to sit down on the plane. The way you are not afraid of me, which I think is the most remarkable thing anyone has done for me in a long time. She closed her eyes. I'm coming back tonight, she said. She came back at 7. He was in the nursery with Sophia when she arrived. She could hear them from the hallway, the low murmur of him talking to her, Sophia's delighted sound in response. She set down her bag and Mia slid off her hip and ran toward the nursery sound because Mia had decided that Sophia was hers, which was both hilarious and deeply touching. Anna followed. She stood in the nursery doorway. Aurelio was on the floor with Sophia propped against his knees, and Mia had already inserted herself into the arrangement, producing a stuffed animal for Sophia's consideration. The lamp was low. The city moved outside the window. The tattoo on his forearm caught the light. La Famiglia sang, and the crest at his collarbone was half visible above his collar, and he looked up from his daughter to Anna with an expression that had nothing in it but honesty. He crossed to him. She sat down on the nursery floor beside him. Sophia immediately grabbed both their hands, one each, as if she'd been waiting for exactly this configuration. "Hello," he said. "Hello," she said. And Mia, with the unassailable confidence of a 2-year-old narrating the world as she found it, said to Sophia, "Mama's back." Later. Much later, after children were asleep and the apartment had settled into its nighttime self, they were in the kitchen. Not making tea. Not talking about anything specific. Just, together in the space, the city outside the window, the ordinary miracle of a shared evening. He was close. He'd been moving closer incrementally over weeks. She understood now that was what had been happening, the slow, certain approach of a man who didn't rush things he meant to keep. The kitchen counter behind her. His hand on the counter beside hers, not touching. She turned to face him. He looked at her. The dark eyes, the still face, the man underneath all the armor, and the space between them was very small and the silence was very large. He said his name. He said hers. And the distance closed. The scene changed the way some scenes do, gracefully with intention, giving the moment its privacy, its wholeness, its permanence. What passed between them in the quiet kitchen of the apartment on Riverside Drive was theirs and was complete. Spring came. It came the way it always does in New York. Suddenly, rudely, as if apologizing for the winter by being excessive about it. The park was green. The river was bright. Sophia had learned to sit independently and was considering the concept of crawling with serious academic interest. Mia had learned to say, please, and thank you in both English and Italian and was inordinately proud of this. Livia had found an apartment in the West Village. She visited Sophia twice a week, the arrangement careful and genuine. 2 adults navigating a shared love without the complications of anything else between them. Sophia, who understood nothing of the architecture of her world and everything of its warmth, reached equally for both women and for Aurelio and for Mia, her world a small complete thing. Anna stayed. This was not a decision she announced or performed. It was simply a fact that accumulated over days. She stayed and Mia stayed, and the apartment on Riverside Drive became without ceremony the shape of their life. On a Saturday in April, Aurelio came to find her. She was in the sitting room with both children, doing what had become their Saturday ritual, an elaborate stuffed animal drama narrated entirely by Mia, with occasional input from Sophia via enthusiastic vowel sounds. Anna was the audience. He stood in the doorway. He was holding something. "Mia," he said, "would you take Sophia to the window for a moment? I think there might be pigeons." Mia considered whether pigeons were worth interrupting the drama. She decided yes. She gathered Sophia with the careful seriousness of an experienced small handler and moved toward the window. Aurelio crossed to Anna. He sat beside her. He opened his hand. In his palm was a ring. Not enormous, not performed, not excessive. Old gold, an Italian setting, a stone the color of deep water. Something that had belonged to someone and was being offered forward. "This was my grandmother's," he said. "My father's mother. He paused. She was the strongest person I have ever known before you." Anna looked at the ring. At his hand, the tattoo on his wrist, La Famiglia sang, the words she had learned, the words that were changing in their application, becoming more rather than less. "Aurelio," she said. "I know what I'm asking," he said. "I know what I am. I know the world I'm asking you to step fully into. I also know that I am," a pause, something that cost him considerably, "I am not the man I was before you arrived. I intend to keep becoming less of him and more of someone you don't have to protect Mia from. That is not a small statement from me." "No," she agreed. "It isn't. I would like to spend my life proving it," he said. She looked at him. At the dark eyes. At the man who had sat on nursery floors and made midnight tea and moved through her walls one careful layer at a time and looked at her daughter's horse drawing with grave sincerity. "Yes," she said. "Not to the ring. To him. The ring was secondary. The yes was for everything. He put the ring on her finger. His hands were steady, the hands that were always steady that held enormous things with care. The tattoo moved when he clasped her hand in both of his. Mia, at the window, had become aware something significant was happening. She turned from the pigeons with the radar of a 2-year-old. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Asking your mother something important," Aurelio said. "What?" "Whether she'll stay." Mia looked at her mother. At Aurelio. At the ring. She had the expression of someone processing considerable information. "She already stays," Mia said. "Yes," Aurelio said. "I know. I'm asking her to stay forever." Mia thought about this for a moment. "Okay," she said and returned to the pigeons. Sophia, for her part, produced a sound of emphatic approval. A year later, Sophia would take her first steps in the nursery that had been redecorated twice. First for a baby, then for a toddler. While Anna watched from the doorway with Mia clutching her leg and Aurelio kneeling on the floor 3 feet away, arms out, saying, "Come, Piccola, come," with the whole of himself hopeful in a way that cities would not have recognized. Sophia would make it 4 steps before sitting down with an air of satisfied completion. Mia would burst into applause. Anna would think about an airplane at 30,000 feet. A baby crying. The curtain she had walked through. The moment she had looked at a man across a quietly sleeping infant and felt something she hadn't named yet. He had a name for it now. He had a name for all of it. That same year in October, on a day when the river outside the window was the color of beaten silver and the park below was beginning to turn, Anna took Aurelio's hand in the kitchen. Their kitchen, the one with the midnight tea history and the ongoing saga of their family's ordinary days. And she told him something. He went very still. He looked at her with an expression she had never seen on him before and then immediately recognized, because she had seen it in the photograph on his desk. That first photograph of Sophia. The man with everything stripped away. The man who had not known yet that this was the thing that would remake him. "Are you certain?" he said. "Quite," she said. He brought her hand to his mouth, his lips against her knuckles, the tattoo on his wrist moving with the gesture. He held it there for a moment, eyes closed, the whole enormous composed man briefly wholly undone. "Anna," he said. "I know," she said. "This is." "Yes," she said. "It is." He looked up. His eyes were bright, which was not a thing she had ever seen before and would spend a long time thinking about how to describe. Like lights on a river. Like the city from up high seen clearly. "La Famiglia Al sang," he said quietly. And she, who had learned the words by now, who had watched them move on his skin and come to understand that they were not only his, she looked at him. At the man who had changed the shape of her life by asking her to sit in a chair that wasn't hers. At the life that had chosen them both, 30,000 feet up, in the cry of a baby and the movement of a woman through a curtain. "Family is blood," she said. She pressed her hand against his chest, above the crest tattoo, above his heartbeat. "And this," she said, "is family." The end. Thank you for reading. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe.